being mindful of just the most important sizes, and then getting an initial read on sales and comping it to other items in the collection or in the assortment to determine, hey, is this working and should we lean into it by adding more finishes, or should we just keep this thing as is? As they were building the assortment in all of these different categories, there wasn't much thought around that. It was more about, let's be dominant, let's get everything in, and we'll worry about the rest later. So that SKU rat number is really high, but it's, you know, they have such a broad assortment that it's probably the right amount.
Okay.
And then you make room for new product development, which, you know, again, it's about 1/5 of what they sell in any given year is new. Customers like to see new product. Their designers get excited about new products. So you want to have a long tail on things that are working, but if things aren't working, get rid of them and make room.
Yeah. And on that point, previously you said about 20% of products, you know, are new each year, right? So like if right now they're cutting these SKUs, it actually creates room for them to actually sort of increase that from like 20% of products being sold being new to maybe 30 or 40%?
I don't think the percentages would get that high. It just makes room in the sense of actually having physical space at the warehouse. So, for example, you can say you're going to discontinue an item. All that means, though, is that we're not going to order back into it. They still might have 120 weeks of supply, you know, with limited options in terms of blowing it out through an outlet or through other, you know, potential challenges to monetize that non-performing inventory. You know, when I say make room, it's more about, you know, physical room in their warehouses, which are quite full. And then also just the shopping experience. It's good to have a dominant assortment, but, you know, go on the website, for example, and pretend you're interested in a crystal chandelier. You know, it's almost close to sensory overload. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going. I mean, there's so many choices that it's maybe too crowded in some of those neighborhoods. And so just to make the shopping experience more bearable, you may want to discontinue items to make room for more. But that's the challenge that RH has, is that it's easy to make a decision that, we're not going to buy back into this. It's harder to figure out how to monetize inventory when at current rate of sale you have 3-year supply sitting in your warehouse.
Yeah. So kind of like then moving to the DC, when you hear about them closing 2 of the 4 DCs, like, I mean, how, like on the surface, it seems like, you know, it's a great opportunity to reduce costs, improve productivity. But knowing, like, know how the supply chain works, like, do you think it's easy to do this, or does this, in your mind, you know, create risk? I mean, maybe they should have gone from 4 to 3 to 2 versus just cutting 2, you know.
Well, you want to minimize, if your goal is to have 2, then I would go straight to 2. You want to minimize the amount of times that you touch any of these boxes. These are huge widgets and huge boxes that are, you know, very easy to damage, torquing, twisting, crushing corners. To me, it makes eminent sense to move to a 2 DC model, just based upon the realities of what the product assortment looks like physically and in terms of the actual order quantities at the SKU level. So I'm really not exaggerating when I say that for a particular SKU, meaning, you know, 102-inch by 58-inch cabinet in weathered oak with brass hardware, like this one particular SKU, despite being a $2.5 billion company, they'll often go to the factory and say, we want 6 units. And not only do we just want